It's that magical time of day when we come together for a special bedtime story. But before we begin our adventure, let's take a moment to get comfy. Find your coziest spot, snuggle up under your warm blankets, and take a few deep, relaxing breaths. Close your eyes for just a moment and let go of all the busyness of the day. Are you ready? Take one more deep breath and let's dive into the fascinating world of our bedtime story. It's time to let your imagination soar. Here it goes. Once upon a time, there was a little wooden puppet named Pinocchio. He lived with his creator, Geppetto, in a small but cozy cottage on the outskirts of a quaint Italian village. Geppetto was a kindly old woodcarver who had always wanted a son, so one day he carved Pinocchio out of a block of pine and pretended he was his real boy. Pinocchio was an animated, mischievous little puppet, constantly getting into trouble around the house and village. His most noticeable feature was his long, pointy wooden nose, which had a habit of growing whenever he told a lie. One sunny morning, Pinocchio snuck a piece of chocolate cake from the kitchen while Geppetto was out tending his garden. When the old woodcarver came inside and questioned him, Pinocchio fibbed, "Not me!" And before his eyes, his nose elongated by 2 whole inches. Geppetto scolded him sternly, wagging his finger and saying, "Now, Pinocchio, you stop telling lies this instant, or soon your nose will be as long as a walking stick." The very next day, with Geppetto hard at work carving a set of new marionettes, Pinocchio ventured out alone into the bustling village, his long nose leading the way. There he encountered a wily fox named Foxy Loxy, dressed in fine clothing and accompanied by his companion, a scraggly old black cat. "Hello there, my wooden friend," said Foxy Loxy in a sweet, inviting voice. "How would you like to join me and my feline friend on a trip to a magical place called Fantasia, where all your dreams come true?" This prospect sounded too amazing to pass up, so without a second thought, Pinocchio eagerly agreed to go with the fox and cat, neglecting to mention anything to Geppetto about his impromptu travel plans. As Pinocchio trotted merrily along the forest path with Foxy Loxy and the cat, his wooden nose slowly began to elongate with each step, growing longer and longer as a twinge of guilt washed over him for leaving Geppetto without notice. The fox and cat simply snickered and exchanged sly glances as Pinocchio's nose extended nearly 2 feet out in front of his face, morphing into a twiggy pointer shuffling along the trail. After several hours of hiking, Foxy Loxy announced that they had reached the magical borders of Fantasia. "Just pass through that cave up ahead, and you'll emerge into a world beyond your wildest dreams," he told Pinocchio with a dramatic sweep of his paw. Trusting Foxy Loxy completely, Pinocchio scrambled enthusiastically toward the dark, mysterious cave, his overgrown nose bumping clumsily along the rocky walls and floor. But when he came out the other side, he found himself still surrounded by the same dense forest as before. Foxy Loxy and the cat had vanished. They had tricked him. Poor Pinocchio immediately burst into distressed sobs, his nose shooting out several more inches in surprise. He was now completely lost in the deep forest, wandering aimlessly while lugging around an ungainly, heavy log of a nose. He attempted every path and trail he came across, desperately trying to find his way back to Geppetto's cottage, but he only succeeded in becoming more bewildered and lost. To make matters worse, it started to pour, the raindrops pelting Pinocchio's face and body. In desperation, he used his massive nose as an umbrella to try and keep dry. "Oh, if only I hadn't lied to Geppetto about that cake, I wouldn't be stuck in this dreadful mess," he wept, plopping down under a tree in despair. As night fell, Pinocchio took meager shelter under a large oak tree. He shivered in the cold and dark, his nose now over 4 feet long and coiled on the ground in front of him like a loose horn. Suddenly, in a flash of light, a magical fairy appeared before him. "I can see you are in dire need of help, little puppet. I will grant you one wish if you promise to forevermore be an honest, truthful boy," the fairy told Pinocchio in her delicate, tinkling voice. Pinocchio readily agreed, desperately pledging to never fib or lie again. With a wave of her wand, the fairy shrunk his tremendous nose back down to its normal wooden size. The following morning, feeling hopeful, Pinocchio set off once again to try and find his way out of the forest and back home. After many fruitless hours of searching, his nose suddenly seemed to lift and quiver, picking up a familiar, welcoming scent: smoke and sawdust. Joyfully following his nose, Pinocchio scampered directly back to Geppetto's cottage, where the worried old woodcarver excitedly swept him up into a big, warm hug, overjoyed to have his puppet son back safely. From that day forward, Pinocchio was always very careful to be completely truthful, to avoid any further lengthening of his nose. He had learned the hard way that telling lies and fibs just got you into trouble and turned your life upside down. The moral of Pinocchio's story is, always stick strictly to the facts, and your nose will maintain its proper form and lack excess slack. As Geppetto wisely reminds Pinocchio, "Speak with truth, my boy, and your nose stays put, but tell one lie and long it will shoot."